Welcome to another one of my podcasts, and today is the 1st of April 2020, and what is normally April's Fool's Day, where people try and guess which are the funny, incorrect news articles or memes or whatever it might be. Today is anything but a Fool's Day, as we are in the midst of this global pandemic. And in some very, very strange times indeed. And to that end, I do genuinely hope that everyone who is listening to this is as safe and well, and their families are okay. And it's been an interesting time for me personally and mentally. I probably had my meltdown 2 weeks ago. I think it's a difficult time kind of blends into one when the dawn of realization what was happening and pipeline crashed. And you look at, when you're running a small business and you look at the next 6 months, and it was tough, very tough, but got through it, talked to people, long conversation with my wife. She had hers shortly after that. She worked for one of the big four consulting firms, and still big firm, small firm. It's not easy based on the hours that she's spending on calls today. So where are we? Why am I recording this? This one, I'm not totally sure actually. I just wanted to talk and kind of share my views and share what I'm hearing and seeing in the market. Last week was a good week actually. Last week was felt like actually coming more like business as usual conversations, and some of that pipeline is now coming back. Now I think people are getting a sense in Europe as to what this looks like, and we're in this for the long haul. Certainly the next 12 weeks, I would suggest is my guess. At least there's some vague certainty of that's that, so we know that. So how can we get on with what we can get on with at the moment? It's been fascinating watching how things unfold online. My news feed is just full of COVID-19 this, COVID-19 that, and I just kind of glaze over it now, switch off. A friend of mine shared a dashboard of a particular blogging site where there are over 7,000 COVID-19 posts attached to it. So how does one even start to filter through that, where some firms sent their COVID-19 report and it was like 28 pages. Again, we haven't got time to digest that, even if we want to digest that. And interesting seeing how sales team and marketing teams are grappling with this. I personally made the choice to slow right down in terms of the content that I'm pushing out, and just rather engaging with content that's already existing, that's on there, and commenting and so on. Actually trying to avoid, where I can, content that is remote working this or remote working that, because there is just so much of it out there. I don't know if you've seen the Qatar Airways sponsored posts that are coming through. I got a sponsored email. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it on Insta. I don't know whether it's somebody has forgotten to turn this off or somebody has just completely and utterly missed the point. But that is a prime example of exactly what not to be doing right now. So if any of you do have automation set up, or you do have automated sponsored posts that are going out, I absolutely urge you to just look at what is queued, because what would have been relevant even 2-3 weeks ago is absolutely not pertinent today, which is very much why we're not seeing any kind of April Fool's memes or jokes coming out, because the 1st of April 2020 is not to be joked about. And I think 2020 full stop is going to be an interesting turning point in global history. But let's try and be more positive, and I think that this is where we need to start moving forwards on. So yes, for me, I've certainly had more business as usual conversations. What I've found, this is in this space where we were already way down the process in terms of statement of works, etc. Things went on pause. We've had to rejig things, and now they're coming back online. What I'm also starting to see is where I have nurtured my network over the last 3 years within my particular kind of market focus. people are starting to come out going, look, we have some budget. What can you do to help? And again, being flexible around what that help looks like, because actually the beauty with being virtual is that, well, I'm not going anywhere, so we can scale this as slowly or as quickly as you want, and we can move this in whichever shape or form you want it to take. And the great thing with virtual is it can scale pretty quickly. So that's been good to see and to feel. I think what I'm also hearing is that in this kind of moment of, dare I say, kind of downtime, and we'll probably start to see more and more of this, is that people will need something to do, dare I say it, and there's only so many screenshots of Zoom or Teams that we can post. Dare I say it, that the fancy dress memes will start to wear off, and this will genuinely become business as usual. That now is the time to start considering, what is the social presence, and what can we do now, so that when the market comes back, and it will come back, there's no two ways about it, that we are all in a position to use the tools and the technology at our disposal in a far more effective way. And that is anything from a quick spring clean of your LinkedIn profile. Have a look at that. When was the last time you actually looked at it? When was the last time you Googled yourself? And if you haven't, do it. Google yourself. See what comes up. See what comes up on page 2. See what comes up on videos. See what comes up on images. What's being dragged through or associated with you. Anybody who's got a similar name to you. Google yourself with the keywords that you want to be associated with. So in my case, it would be Alexander Lowe social selling, or Alexander Lowe modern selling, or Alexander Lowe sales navigator. Whatever it is that you do. I suggest that you do that. Another good way to kind of understand how you represent yourself online. And this is actually anywhere you could do. It could be a corporate bio that you have on the website. It could be your LinkedIn profile, Twitter profile, anywhere. But a good trick that we use is find a word cloud. Any word cloud, they're online and they're free. And just cut and paste your LinkedIn profile. Just copy and paste the text and put that into the word cloud. And then see what comes up. See what is the most prominent. What are the most prominent words? And if none of those words relate to what you do or how you can help your clients, then I suggest maybe looking at the narrative, looking at some of the context and the language within your digital profiles, and how can that be reflected to be more or reflective of your particular target audience. Other things that I think that I'm beginning to pick up on is those organisations that were starting to have these conversations. I mean, we're talking about transformation for everyone a day now. Maybe you're in a slightly more positive place, but then inversely on that is that if we look at an industry such as legal, where my background and do a lot of work, for an industry that said that working from home, although they were getting better, and some law firms were better than others, was something that couldn't be done, how quickly they've managed to, mobilise and move that through. And I think across all industries, what one cannot forget and thank is kind of the IT team and the IT support teams for kind of keeping everything going and everything running. That, of course, presents a whole different challenge that organisations need to be considered of. Things like data privacy, things like not taking photos of video shots with confidential information on shot, or login details, or whatever it might be. But there certainly is I've seen a tweet going around in terms of who was it that got your digital transformation off the ground, and I think it's a CEO, CDO, or COVID-19. And of course, COVID-19 is the one that is forced this upon us, notwithstanding the terrible human catastrophe that has. But I wrote a piece on this a couple of weeks ago around anti-fragile, and sometimes anti-fragility, i.e. things need to be broken in order for them to come out stronger. So something is anti-fragile, then actually when it gets broken, it comes out stronger. And it's a concept from a an author, a professor, and it causes there's a lot of debate on it online. It's certainly worth looking at, but hopefully some good will come out of this, and learnings will come out of this. What has been, I think, fascinating for me is how people have just pulled together. I'm on a WhatsApp group and a Facebook group which is dedicated to helping those that are in isolation or those that are vulnerable, can't get food, and people that don't know each other, even admit, meeting people on their own street who they have never kind of met before. I'm doing the inverted commas. Now, communicating through WhatsApp, and people, helping to, do deliveries, prescriptions, helping to cook meals. The other thing that's been, amazing is the supermarkets have been swamped. Is seeing all the local industries, so local butchers, farm shops, move to online so quickly, and online deliveries and online ordering. And it's a little bit more expensive, but it tastes a lot better, and you're supporting the local community. So I think this is going to see a complete change in terms of how we shop, where we shop, and actually you can shop local. And will this? The high street was getting hammered anyway before all of this. And I read about the other day the Amazonification of the world, and obviously online is now the lifeline to thousands of people to keep going and keep moving forward. But it'll be interesting to see how this redefines what the high street stands for, and is the high street going to become actually it's a focal point of what it was back in the day, back before digital, before any of this existed, where it was a community, and back to that kind of that local community. And around kind of the local community side of things, bring this back online to work. And forgive me if you hear a pause, I've got a cup of tea here. Is that what I have found in the workshops that we have been running for our clients that have been moved to online, is that we run our sessions and we run into a kind of classroom-based environment, so a meeting room, and it could be any meeting room on the planet for all that matters, in a grey glass steel square box of a corporate building. You walk in, and irrespective of whether you're in suits or kind of tech, kind of more relaxed kind of gear, you can read the room and you can kind of work out the hierarchy. You can kind of establish, where the alphas are within that and who the leaders are, and so on, which is fine. It is what it is. I think what's been fascinating in running the virtual workshops is that everybody's just, if people choose to launch video, not everyone does, but those that do, and even those that don't, actually thinking about it further, we're all equal. And I can't tell who's senior, who's not senior. Okay, I can have a guess based on age, but that's a really, really dangerous route to go down. And what's also been interesting is that you get to meet people in their home environment for the most part. And of course, in the home environment, everyone's home environment is different. Everyone's backdrop is different. Everyone's setup is different. Everyone, it's not this kind of staged, kind of corporate uniform, if you will. And it's been a real leveler. And also, but it has enabled me to feel like I'm closer to, even though I'm not actually physically in the room with these people, it actually feels like I'm closer than I've ever been to clients, because it is, for those of you in the UK, it's a bit like, if you remember Through the Keyhole with Lloyd Grossman, it is a window, literally, a little window on your computer, into someone's personal life. And there could be kids, dogs, partners walking in the background. I've just got off a call with a client with their procurement team, and one of the gentlemen on the other end of Zoom, and his partner walked behind him, and nobody bats an eyelid, because it is the new norm. My wife, as I said, she said the other day that she's been working with her current business for well over a year, large organisation, and she realises that she didn't actually know her colleagues at all. Well, she knew her colleagues in terms of say hello to and this and that, but now she actually really knows her colleagues, and what makes them tick, and who's got families, partners, kids, dogs, pets, where they live, etc. Which again is a very weird thing to say when you think about it, because business is about relationships and trust. But maybe over time we've kind of put up this kind of corporate veneer, and some industries more so than others, where you're not kind of allowed to bring home to work. And I certainly remember way back in my my early days, going through breakups and so on, and you were told, you leave that at the door. You don't bring those emotions to work. I'm not interested. You're here to work. You're not here to pine over a lost girlfriend or boyfriend or pet, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And I think that what we're starting to see is this. Again, I feel so weird saying it, but the more human aspect of life. And I did a podcast earlier with Helen Gatsey earlier in the year on this, and she was my first guest, talking about kind of the EQ, the emotional quotient, or your emotional intelligence is as important, if not, than your IQ, your intellectual quotient. And it is certainly evident that we are seeing more of that, and one has to be emotionally available, if you will, and one has to accept that we are in extraordinarily trying times. Again, we are seeing mistakes being made online that are being played online. Well, mistakes that are being made out in the world that are being played out in the press, and leaders are going to have to coming out and issuing apology letters, etc., etc. For the UK, I think Mike Ashley at First Direct and his handling of things. So it's just really interesting to see how this plays out, and speaking to other friends who are in other situations, how what this is doing around kind of leveling the playing field is that this hierarchical structure is becoming less present. And if I look at what I was seeing in the, let's say, professional services, so that's one of the areas that I focus on and we focus on, and typically there is the kind of the pyramid partner on the top, and then and you go down accordingly. The idea is you get the work at the top, and then you disseminate down through, and that's how you drive your margins. And it was listening to Harry Gaskill, who's the CTO, one of the two from EY. He was saying the pyramid is no longer fit for purpose in professional services, and we're moving to, the partner is in the middle, if you will, so the accountant, lawyer, consultant, and then it's a circle, and they're surrounding themselves with this kind of flexible workforce which they need to draw, and it could be internally, it could be externally, it could be kind of on demand, as it were. And I think we're starting to see kind of more of that move into more, not so traditional, but because obviously corporates and LLPs are two different kind of structures. And corporate, you got your structure, and everyone knows kind of where they kind of sit and what's going on, as it were. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But what I've also, and I'm rambling here, I apologise, but I just wanted to get on and do a podcast and just talk about stuff, is that this is also giving certainly me time to look at different skills. So I have a YouTube channel, and I'm now actually trying to get into, whilst I understand how YouTube works, I'm actually getting into the nuts and bolts of, well, how do you actually get YouTube to work the best for you? Well, I understand LinkedIn inside out, pretty good understanding of Facebook and Instagram and kind of those platforms, but getting into the nuts and bolts of YouTube and the algorithm on YouTube and tagging and how to put thumbnails that are proper on your videos, all this kind of this stuff. So taking this downtime to actually learn something new, and I hope that all of you are taking this opportunity to learn something new. I saw a chap on Facebook. He's trying to learn Mandarin within a week. Something he's always wanted to do. He had spent time out in Hong Kong and China, so he got a kind of a base point. But it's all that kind of stuff. And then looking at the way that children are now interacting with technology. You've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and granny and granddad doing bedtime stories over video call, and having the virtual Friday afternoon, pint with some friends over WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, and all this kind of stuff, which we didn't really take, or we took for granted, but never thought it could be done that way. And okay, whilst it's not the same, it's going to become ever more normal for this generation. When they go through this, it'll be like, okay, when this stops, I can foresee, well, why can't I have granny and granddad who read me a story over video? My 2-year-old is now talking to. I've got Sky Q. He talked to the controller because they're voice activated. So he sees me saying open Netflix or whatever, and he's now trying to copy that. And he's only 2. So I think this is it's an interesting play in terms of what this means for education. There's no doubt about it. Our 4-year-old, she's missing the interactions. She's missing being with her friends, and I think that is absolutely critical. And we're doing what we can on that front. So yeah, it's just interesting times, and that's why I just thought, well, I wanted to record a podcast, just kind of sharing how I'm feeling, the kind of things that I'm seeing out there. And I appreciate that this is a bit of a ramble, but hopefully might be a bit of a distraction to whatever is going on in your worlds, whatever that might be. And again, there's big things about TikTok, but TikTok is certainly for me a bit of light entertainment and light humour if you want to get away from this all. And I also saw this. I think it was shared on Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember this video from, it was 2019, so last year. US college kid, valedictorian, talking about valedictorian, and he'd been working towards that, and it was absolutely brilliant. And then after we talk about the 15 seconds of 15 minutes of fame, or the 15 seconds of what have you, and he was saying that after kind of the 15 seconds of realization that he'd achieved what he'd want to achieve, which is become valedictorian of his class year, it was the 16th second when he kind of was like, now what was that all actually for, and what have I actually sacrificed to get there? And he touches on relationships, he touches on this and that, and that's about 8-minute speech on YouTube. You find out it's like valedictorian, no regrets, or his turn of phrase is have no regrets in the 16th second, which I thought was a nice touch. And I watched this, and I think, again, for me, for a lot of people, what is going on in the world, it's hitting a kind of a massive Control-Alt-Delete, if you will, kind of reset button. That yes, of course, we want goals, and yes, in order to achieve goals, sacrifice has to be made. But sometimes, is the goal that you've achieved actually worth the sacrifice that you're making to get there? And life is too short. It genuinely is too short. I lost my father a couple of years ago, somewhat unexpectedly. I'm glad he's not having to live through this, but that certainly reset things for me somewhat, and this is kind of resetting things even further. Notwithstanding that, the irony is, I'm kind of, at least I can only get rid of myself rather than being in a large organisation. But anyway, back to that. The valedictorian thing, no regrets in the 16th second, which I think is a great thing. So outside of that, today's been a difficult day. I'm not gonna lie, I've had a tough day today. Notwithstanding some good phone calls, we kind of sat there just feeling a little bit helpless, going, well, what can I do? And nothing is happening, but it will happen. I keep reminding myself that I'm in a much better situation than a lot, thousands, hundreds of thousands of other people on the planet right now. Very fortunate to support industries which are needed to keep things moving forwards. So I just wanted to, I guess selfishly more so than anything, just sit down and kind of just talk. I think talking is key, and just kind of share my thoughts and my views and my feelings, and just kind of, it's going to be all right. we will all get through this. It will be okay. There's absolutely no doubt about it. There's going to be some tough roads ahead for people and some tough decisions to be made. But we will get through this, and it's going to be, one hell of a party to be sure. I hope, to celebrate those that we've lost, to celebrate the lives of those that we've lost, to celebrate that we've come together and that we've moved on and forwards from all of this. So to that end, as I come to 2 minutes to 4 p.m. in the afternoon here in London on the 1st of March 2020, as I said, April's Fool's Day, but this is certainly no April Fool's at all. Be safe, be well, as ever. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the flip side.